Hi, I'm just going to show you around this Ellipso fan. It's an orbiting fan, like the Berkeley Orbit, made by B&Y Young, or Birmingham. I've got it all stripped down, I've just rebuilt it, and I thought it'd be a good time just to, before I put it all back together, just to show you the gearbox arrangement and the repair I did on it as well, in case anyone else has the same problem. So the fan has a double arrangement of this worm drive. Nicely done there. The gear there you can see is concaved, which is good. Sometimes cheaper gears would be flat across, but it's concave, so you get a greater surface area of the gear binding. So it's got two of those. The same. Well, it's like there's a slight difference in the gear. I mean, that one's got a shaft on it, as you can see, but they're essentially the same. So the tooling would have been saved. That would have been cheaper. It would have been a single production kind of for those components. So one of them is let's have a look at this. So there's one worm drive there with the gear on the top, another one straight down, and then another one of these gears horizontally like that onto a shaft on a crank arm. You see that down there? So it's yeah, it's kind of nice, but there is, I think, maybe a weak point in the sort of safety clutch system. They made like a pressed, that'll focus, there we go, they made this pressed component with an embossed centre and like a little sort of ridge there, and that would be sprung against that gear. So there'd be a spring shaft through there, spring holding that tight on there, and when you loosen the nut, that would release the tension, and that would allow the gear to rotate without it engaging. Well, that's like a sort of an on-off system for the oscillating, plus a safety because it's sprung. So if it gets overloaded, it will spring over and stopping the gears shredding. But this material, I mean, it's so thin. It's just a very thin. I mean, it's a soft, mild steel, pressed steel, and that hole through the centre should be rectangular. Like with like a slot and not circular, to fit on the shaft here, which has got two flat edges on it. So it's been overloaded, and it's created a circle instead of a sort of a slot, which stopped it oscillating. So finding that was the problem, and I couldn't really. I was thinking, shall I modify this in some way, but I couldn't really see a way of doing it. I mean, it's so thin, the metal. So I made a sort of a solid brass one out of what is that? So about 3mm brass sheet. Made the slotted hole through the middle, rebaited for, there's like a bit of the shaft that just slightly sticks out through the gear, and soldered a little bit of brass wire on there to replicate, let's get it around the right way, replicate that little bump on there. So I've kind of checked it, I've put it all back together, sort of roughly checked it, and it does work. This would be like the final assembly with, I need to put lots of lube and some grease in there. So I thought I'd take you through it, and you can see it going back together. Right, so you're kind of going to have to kind of bear with me on this, because it's been one of those long-running projects which has sort of been sitting around for a long time, and it's been quite a while since I've sort of taken it apart and reinstalled it. So This might be a little bit of thinking on this to remember how it goes back together, but let's have a look. Now, if we can get that crank arm through there, like that. Yep. A good bit of squirt of 3-in-1 in there. A bit of square 3-in-1 in there. Let's go in. Just because I can't get any grease in that bearing shaft hole. Retaining screw. That was another problem. The retaining screw was bent. Someone had dropped it. I think dropped it backwards. It hit the shaft, bent the retaining screw. So I had to make a new one. Luckily, I got some Imperial stock machine screws. So just filed a plane on there, sawed it off. That's just the second one I was making. So screw that in. I was surprised at this. These screws are pretty loose fit. I was surprised at that. They don't feel great. Right, now got to fit that gear into there. Let's see if we can show you down there. I don't know if you can see it. Gear pops in there. It's got a plane shaft and just spin, spin, spin. Now originally it had that pressed steel part was on there, and obviously that's going to spin around, not do anything. So I'm going to put my new part in there. There we go, fits nicely. And it had a strange arrangement of two springs of different materials. It had a brass one and a steel one. Now I think originally the steel one was against the steel clutch plate, and the brass one was against the sort of screw knob thing that you used to turn the oscillator on and off. I mean, I don't suppose it matters which way around I do it now because I've got brass against brass, so I'll leave the steel one where it was against the clutch plate, and I'll put the brass one again where I think it was. I mean, I'm not sure that they were there. Somebody might have had this apart before I came to, I'm sure they have. And to be honest, I don't even remember which way they came off. Right, next I think we will put one of these worm drives onto the back of the motor shaft. Actually, I think I should put a bit of grease on that. Or should I put that gear in first? No, that will go in. That will go in. Yeah, in fact that one's in there now. So that I'm going to put a bit of grease underneath that. So we will, yeah, put this gear in. Don't get muck on there. Muck all over the workbench. Right. A bit of grease behind that one. Right. Let's get that on the back of there. Is that on? Is that on? Is that on? I think so. I think that's on. Doesn't look like it's in far enough. I think it's on. A bit on that as well. slather a bit on the bottom of that gear, like that. Right, that should do. Trouble is now I can't get hold of anything, my hands are slipping. Yeah, I think I should probably put the straight gear in last. That's it, yeah. It's funny, when I did this a minute ago, when it's so easily, there we are, done it. Now I'll just show you a nice detail before I put this end cap on. The bearing surface, because there's an end cap on there and you've got the end of this, we've got the end of this gear here. The end cap, the brass end cap, has, can you see that there? Has a small ball, like a hardened steel ball in the end, like a ball bearing ball, and the end of that shaft has a little recess hole, so you've got a very small contact surface on there, bearing surface. Obviously they'd have grease in there as well, so that's quite nice. That's a nice little detail. So that's what's happening on the end of this shaft. You've got this same that shaft is exactly the same as this shaft, and just show you as well that a little slot. See the little slot on the top there, just to retain a little bead of grease as it rotates around. So let's slather on a bit more of this stuff into there. Like that. I think that'll probably do. Should be a washer seal to go on there. Stop any muck coming out. Locking screw, or locking nut I should say, like that. See if that rotates. Have I done that too tight? See, that'll be an adjustment for tightness, won't it? Undo that a little bit, binding up the gear there. A little bit more. Yeah, that's nice. Right. Hands are all greasy, can't get any grip on anything. Now, I won't put that on yet, that cap, because I want to make sure all this is on first. So, that goes up there, up the end. The end needs to rotate to get. Just slacken that off, and that gear can turn. That's it. That's in, but I need to be able to get some grease in there. Right, okay, so after a lot of fiddling, I've got it to go in. For some reason it wouldn't stay in the slot on the end of the shaft until I'd put the brass screw on the end of that shaft. It just keeps wanting to pop out for some reason. I really don't know why. So anyway, I've put it on and it works. Now I need to put a retaining screw onto that top gear. like that. I think all I need to do. Yeah, I'm just trying to work out what all the screws are for. It's a typical thing, isn't it? Try not to have screws left over at the end. But yeah, I think we can safely pack that with grease and that with grease and put the covers back on, and that'll be alright. Right, horrible job, grease everywhere. Anyway, that is the on and off, effectively the on and off for the oscillating. I'll sort that out in a minute. And also there is one more part to go on. On that crank arm there's a ball bearing in there, well, like a ball joint I should say, actually a ball joint, and that spring, let's go on there. Let me show you that. It focuses. Like a little brass cap and a sort of a conical spring, and there's a ball in that joint. I think the ball's sat here. That's what it is. That sits on the ball, and the smaller end sits on the cap. But I've got to put a bit of grease on there again, and I'll just wipe my hands. So let's. Just splat a bit in there. Like that. And there's so many lubrication points on this, it's ridiculous. Even that, I don't know if you can see it, maybe I'll show you in a minute. There's like a retaining screw through that joint, which is hollow, which needs lubricating. I mean, like I say, who in this day and age could you imagine anyone going around lubricating all these joints? It's ridiculous. Just so a fan can oscillate round and around. There we go. I think that's kind of there. Let's turn it on, and fingers crossed it'll do something. I'm just helping a little bit because it hasn't got any of the counterweight of the cage and the blade on it, so it might just slip. A problem I find with Verity orbits. It's an oiler. Right. That seems alright. See if I can turn it off. Nope, still goes. Nope. No, seems to be slightly popped the clutch there. So, still going off. No. Well, I'm not sure if it can be turned off or on, but but the most important thing is it works as opposed to it not working. So I think not being able to turn the oscillating off is just probably a bit of tweaking. Okay, there we go. So let's put the blade and the cage on, and yeah, go from there. Blade might not be balanced, there might be a bit interesting. Right, so the cage and the blade are back on. I didn't bother filming that, I mean I don't want to bore you with that. I put a bit of the old 3-in-1 motor oil, where the oilers should be. I haven't got the oilers in there, they're still soaking in petrol. So yeah, I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know what's going to happen. So let's start it up and give it a go. It's alright. A bit lumpy in places. You know, it's old, there's a lot of joints on it, and I think some of those joints are maybe a bit loose. So it sort of binds on the way around. And yeah, that's not bad. Quite pleased with that. I mean, seeing as when I got it, the wire, even the head wire was cut off. So I've had to put new head wire on it. And obviously that clutch plate was broken, so remade that. Yeah, not bad. Quite pleased with that. It's even quite nicely balanced. Yeah, good. Well, okay, well I hope that was some use to some people out there. I mean, I don't know how many of these fans are out there and with the same problem. I mean, maybe all of these fans, these examples out there, have that same problem with the clutch plate broken. Maybe. Anyway, if you've got one out there and you've got that problem, maybe that's the thing to check, that little clutch plate. You may rebuild one, make a new one like I did. Seems to work. Yeah, so I hope you found it useful, or you know, if you haven't got one of these fans, enjoy the rebuild. Okay, thanks, see you next time.